Hey, Aster here, and today, oh boy, I just came out of the Archon quest, took a 3-hour class or something, and finally here I am. I really want to talk about the Archon quest because oh my god. Alright, so today I want to open up my unscripted thoughts and initial musings, findings, etc. about the Archon quest of the 3.3 or the interlude Archon quest. And boy, do I have a lot of things to say about this Archon quest, just both in terms of lore and in terms of opinion or writing, etc. or scaramouche, because oh my gosh. Oh man. Alright. So, I actually have a list of what I want to say. So first is that we finally have the confirmed age, or at least the confirmed age range for the Wanderer. The Wanderer is around 400 years old, give or take 425 years old max. But it's great to know that, at the very least, compared to all the other immortal divine creatures in Tivat, the Wanderer is like super young in the grand scheme of things. I think he's as old as Albedo, maybe a little older than Albedo. So it's actually kind of fascinating to finally put that. And another important bit is that Dottore is confirmed to be more than 400 years old, or more than around 450 years old, because when we got to the point in the Tarasuna where Niwa was manipulated, or at least was stabbed by the doctor, he was already around the age of, well, he was already around a pretty mature age, so I would say around 25 to 35 or maybe even 40, and that's like a really low estimate, so Dottore is clearly not human. I'm really happy for that. And now we move on to Niwa, Katsuragi, Nagamasa, and basically the entire Tatarasuna incident. I theorized before that Dottore and Piero were the ones that were in charge of sabotaging the entirety of Tatarasuna and purging the information about it. And I'm pretty happy to say that that was partially confirmed in this Archon quest, that Dottore was the one that sabotaged it. Another one, though, that I did want to talk about is the fact that Niwa and Katsuragi are two different people, and that, I think, was one of the biggest shockers for me as a lore content creator. Well, to be fair, Niwa had only one mention all the way back in 2.6. And Niwa is a family name, so I was always under the assumption that it was Niwa Katsuragi, because that Kaidahara from 2.6 wasn't necessarily part of the Kaidahara clan. Like, he was someone from another clan, which is the Niwa, and Niwa was a family name. So I was under the assumption that Katsuragi was a Niwa, and oh boy, was I wrong. Katsuragi and Niwa are two different people entirely, two very, very undeveloped people. And for some reason, I'm kind of disappointed at the fact that Katsuragi was nothing more than just a kind young deputy, even though I feel like if they just merged Niwa and Katsuragi into one character, like, it wouldn't have any changes. Like, they would just have more fleshed out for that character. But that's just some super minor nitpicking. But it's confirmed that Niwa and Katsuragi are two different people. Mikoshi Nagamasa is not a douchebag. You know, congratulations on meeting the douchebag allegations, Mikoshi Nagamasa. And that everything was Dottore's fault. And one day I will make an update to that Scaramouche video about his lore and Tatarasuna with this newfound information, but not today. And now, next is the purging of a person's identity from Irminsul. Again, I said a while ago that Genshin Impact has introduced more and more convoluted rules to the prospect of fate, to the prospect of time, to the prospect of memories. Knowledge in Genshin Impact is not permanent, and it's clear that Genshin is not afraid to erase information from the entirety of the game, Monica style. For clarification, it is important to note that Scaramouche and the Balladeer are no longer part of the canon of Genshin Impact the moment that you play 3.3. The only characters that are aware of Kunikuzushi and the Balladeer's existence is the Balladeer himself, Nahida, Paimon, and Aether. Though it is possible, and I mean very, very possible, that Dottore has the same failsafe as Nahida. If Nahida could use this loophole of the Irminsul, I really don't doubt that Dottore would also back up that kind of information, considering how intelligent he is. So it's always fair to assume that Dottore would have an idea of who the Balladeer is, and why in this timeline the Fatui has kept the 6th Harbinger position vacant for some reason. So for clarification, because of what happened of Scaramouche erasing himself, certain aspects of the game and the story have now been rewritten as per what the characters remember. Yae Miko and Tartaglia have lost their voice lines of who the Balladeer is or who Kunikuzushi is. The 2.6 letter from Kaidahara Yoshinori was completely purged of the word Kunikuzushi, and it was altered based on that vengeful bladesmith that was hunting down the Raiden Gokaren. And the Shakai Pavilion's lore was also altered. However, the lore of the Husk of Opulent Dreams and the Surpassing Cup wasn't necessarily touched as far as I know, so I don't think they went that deep to just completely remove the Husk of Opulent Dreams from existence, which is pretty interesting in my opinion, that the Husk of Opulent Dreams and the Surpassing Cup, despite being artifact sets from the Irminsul, still exist, but I can definitely see why they wouldn't want to just suddenly remove an artifact set completely from the game. But this has a lot of repercussions, because as we all know, forgetting someone's existence in Genshin Impact does not mean that time reweaves itself. Genshin Impact's rules of fate means that every occurrence before that altercation has to have happened, and the world will simply readjust by filling in the blanks. This is also very important to consider, because according to the Fatui that was in Mondstadt, the position of the 6th Harbinger is just vacant for some reason. So I have to believe that in this timeline, Dottore for some reason, or at least someone in the higher ups, has an idea of who the Balladeer is and hasn't made the movement to simply eradicate that position altogether. Not all the Harbingers would know, for example, Tartaglia does not know who the Balladeer is, or that there even is a Balladeer in the first place, but that he is simply the 11th Harbinger. Fate and actions in Genshin Impact are not altered by what people remember. Once they have happened, they've already happened. So erasing yourself doesn't actually have that big of a deal. It's also what we saw in Greater Lord Ruka Devada, that all the events in the Sumeru Archon quest still happened, even though one of the biggest motivations of the sages was to avenge or to continue the legacy of Greater Lord Ruka Devada. If Genshin didn't have this overlying clause of fate being a firm and sturdy constant in the game, then there would have been no justification for the Sumeru Archon quest the moment that Greater Lord Duca Devada stopped existing, and history would have rewritten itself. But Genshin has made a narrative blockade in a way of making sure that no, history will not rewrite itself. It's just that people will not remember, or at least remember differently, how that history came to be, or at least in this alternate world, history would have been written differently. I also want to include that certain ways of writing information are not considered by the Irminsul as erasable, I suppose. First was the fairy tale strategy that Nahida used. Because it never had a clear reference to Kunikuzushi the Balladeer, the Irminsul I think just never considered as a piece of information that connects directly to the Balladeer, so it never erased it in the first place because it never had to. So I'm thinking that if one of the Harbingers would have remembered the Balladeer's existence, it would have been through the same method of using abstractions and metaphors in order to remember, or at least to catalog certain events outside of the capacity of the Irminsul to erase direct references. And last but certainly not the least, I want to talk about the fascinating fact that there is a mysterious voice in the end that talks about fate, and that Paimon can also hear this. The best candidate for this voice, in my opinion, is Istaroth. The best candidate for this, by the way, is Istaroth. And I also want to point out the fact that it's Alice who does Wanderer's character Miscellany, which actually feeds into that theory that Alice herself is a descender. And in my opinion, that's actually pretty cool. But going back to the Archon quest, I will just say this. The Archon quest for Sumeru is very, very long, and we are not even done, by the way, with the Sumeru Archon quest. We still need to see the trees start burning, and we have yet to actually see that. That very important scene in the beginning of everything in the 11 Harbingers trailer, we have yet to see the tree burning, and I am so excited how they're going to play this out. Because the Wanderer is now technically Nahida's secretary, as I like to call it. The Wanderer is technically free to roam as he pleases, but now he also has a sort of an association with Nahida, mostly to assist her in the background as a form of equal exchange, as he likes to call it. So we're definitely going to see a lot of him if Nahida is involved, and I'm pretty interested about that. But as for my final thoughts and my overall enjoyment of this Archon quest, I'm going to say that it's actually pretty fun. If you're not a Wanderer fan, then you're not a Wanderer fan. But for me personally, I think it was a pretty fun Archon quest. It certainly wasn't perfect in my opinion. Like writing wise, I do feel like things just got a little bit somewhere along there. And I think that this negotiating relationship between Nahida and Scaramouche, where both of them look at practicality and utility as one of their currencies of why they interact, is actually a really good dynamic, given that Nahida can absolutely be on the unsympathetic side when it comes to practicality and wisdom, etc., and the truth. Nahida is actually a really, really good complement to Scaramouche's brash personality because she herself is pretty frank and straight to the point if you want her to be. She is someone that can be cutthroat, given that she is the god of wisdom. And it was actually pretty cool to see what Scaramouche could have been if he was just a puppet without the Fatui. It was pretty nice. It was like, a part of me was thinking, what if we just leave him? Like, I mean, this is what he wanted, right? He wanted to be relieved from the pain, but the moment that he said that he wanted to pay for his sins. But I'm happy that we have the balladeer and still his snarky ass personality just ready to help us whenever we need to. Yay. Anyway, my name is Alcer and thank you so much for chilling with me. What are your thoughts with the Archon quest, and what are your thoughts with the fact that Scaramouche and the balladeer and Kabukimono and Kunikuzushi just does not exist anymore? What are your thoughts on all of that? And I will see you next time. Bye-bye!